Hey class, my name's Braxton Frazier,
Mikhail Garcia.
and today we're here to nominate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the U.S. History Hall of Fame and former U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy for the U.S. History Hall of Shame.
Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Baptist minister and activist who became the most visible spokesperson and leader in the civil rights movement from 1954 until his death in 1968. We want to induct Martin Luther King Jr. in our Apush Hall of Fame because of his push for equal rights for all, helping and ending segregation laws using only nonviolence practices. He led the nonviolence Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington, which helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which led his famous I Have a Dream speech, which inspired millions of African Americans. First, Martin Luther King Jr. was the most important voice of American civil rights movement, which worked for equal rights for all. Second, he was famous for using nonviolent resistance to overcome injustice, and he never got tired of trying to end segregation laws that prevented blacks from entering certain places such as restaurants, hotels, and public schools. Next, King led a nonviolent protest in the Montgomery bus boycott, which was 13th month mass protest that ended with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that segregation on public buses is unconstitutional. The Montgomery bus boycott was a civil rights protest during which African Americans refused to ride city buses in Montgomery, Alabama to protest segregation seating. The boycott took place from December 5th, 1955 to December 20th, 1956, and is regarded as the first of many U.S. demonstrations against segregation. Also in 1963, Dr. King achieved perhaps his most important achievement when he helped lead over 200,000 people to the Lincoln Memorial overlooking the Washington Monument. The JFK White House described it as thousands of Americans exercising their rights to protest and bring attention to the issues of segregation. The March on Washington, organized by King and other groups of civil rights, laborers, and religious organizations, in order to gain civil and economic equality for African Americans. The march was crucial in helping to pass the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Lastly, Martin Luther King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech, which led a drive to get more equal treatment for every American. This speech was important in several ways. It brought even greater attention to the civil rights movement, which had been going on for many years. Now let's take a look on why Julianne Garcia believes why MLK should be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
I believe that Martin Luther King should be in the Hall of Fame because he brought publicity to the major civil rights activities and efforts, and he emphasized and encouraged the importance of nonviolent protests and resistance, and as well as providing leadership to the African American community in civil rights movement. And I believe that this is really important, especially in today's day and age, since there is still a lot of inequality present.
Now we would like to nominate former U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy for the U.S. History Hall of Shame. In the 1940s and 50s, many Americans had come to believe that communists were lurking around every corner in the United States. This era, which we have come to know as the Red Scare, or the fear that communists affected our political, cultural, and social lives, was headed by Senator Joseph McCarthy. McCarthy spent years attempting to expose communist and loyalty risks to the United States, and he made the American public believe our government and country was filled with the communists and traitors to the U.S. So Joseph McCarthy's anti-communist push should put him in the U.S. History Hall of Shame because he scared the American public into believing we had a huge problem in the U.S. He caused over 2,000 government employees to lose their jobs. He negatively influenced U.S.-Russian relations at the time. He caused a distrust in politicians, and he helped inspire today's fake news. Joseph McCarthy scared the American public into believing there were more communists in the United States than there were. This was all started when Joseph McCarthy gave a speech to the Women's Republicans Club in Wheeling, where he claimed he had a list of 205 known communists that were shaping policy in the government. He went on a long campaign accusing many different people of being traitors with little to no evidence. While there were known communists in the government, the majority of the people that were accused were innocent. Next, McCarthy caused many Americans to lose their jobs. In 1953, McCarthy was put in charge of a committee of government operations. This allowed him to conduct thousands of hearings, interrogating witnesses and invading their civil rights. This caused more than 2,000 government employees to lose their jobs and be ridiculed by the public. Continuing on, he negatively influenced U.S.-Russian relations by scaring the public into thinking communist spies were everywhere. As stated before, he led a long set of hearings which convicted many different people of being communist, even if they weren't. This scared the American public and increased Cold War tensions, especially in the Korean War, which was going on during this period. Also, he caused a distrust in politicians because the American public watched Joseph McCarthy being questioned by the Senate and proven wrong about many of the hearings he conducted. The Senate let him keep his job, but he lost all his power, and because McCarthy was able to lie to the public, this caused a huge distrust in the American government. Lastly, Joseph McCarthy helped create today's fake news. McCarthyism is the practice that endorses the use of unfair allegations and investigations. His creation of this helped influence today's fake news because it set a precedent for politicians to be able to lie without any evidence to back up their claim. Now we'll get the point of view of Riley Frazier of why he thinks McCarthyism has influenced politics today.
All right. So McCarthyism has affected politics today when you see the President of the United States making accusations about the FBI infiltrating his campaign that are completely unfounded, as well as other accusations about illegal voters voting in the 2016 election.
And these are the reasons why we think Martin Luther King should be in the U.S. History Hall of Fame and Joseph McCarthy should be in the U.S. History Hall of Shame. Thanks for listening.